We have finally arrived. Round 1 of the A-League Men's 2024-25 season is here. It's obviously been a super long off-season and the wait is finally over. And here is my full preview and predictions for all 6 games coming up this weekend. Some huge matches coming up, and I would love to get your thoughts and predictions on these games coming up this weekend, because obviously the opening weekend especially is really tricky to predict. So much unknown about so many teams heading into the opening weekend of the A-League. We also did a video recently going over predicted lineups for all 13 teams. So if you want to see how your A-League team might line up this weekend, feel free to check that out on the channel as well. But let's jump into our score predictions. And first of all, Friday night kicking us off is Melbourne victory, Central Coast Mariners, a rematch of last season's grand final. Can my Mariners grab a victory on opening day? Obviously, it's been a rocky start to the season for the Mariners, who've already played a couple games in both the Australia Cup and as well the Asian Champions League 2, losing all those games unfortunately so far. But as we know, Mariners really struggled at the start of last season and ended up going on to win the treble. Taking on a Melbourne victory side who made it to the Australia Cup final, have built a really good squad this season. First A-League game with charge for new head coach Patrick Kisnorbo. I think victory potentially favourites heading into this game, despite Mariners winning the championship last year, being the home team. You look at the team on paper and Victory, you know, a club of that size, they're able to bring in some fantastic names and have got a great squad with great depth. Central Coast Mariners, a lot of new signings there set to make their A-League debuts with the likes of Alpha McCalmon, Vitor Feijão, potentially Sabit Ngora as well. So a number of debutants there for the Central Coast Mariners in the A-League, and I think it might take a bit more time for these new players to gel in this setup for the Mariners, where, you know, Melbourne Victory have already been performing really well and gelling really well in their Australia Cup run, grabbing wins in that competition. For me, I'm expecting a tight game. You look at that Victory attack, and the Mariners backline will really have to make sure they're on their game to nullify those dangerous Victory attackers. And again, Victory looking very solid in defence this season. So can the likes of Alec Kuol, Ryan Edmondson break down that backline? And a key matchup to keep an eye on in this game, I'm going for Mikael Docker versus Jason Geria. Now, Jason Geria recently featuring for the Socceroos. We'll see if he even does start. Obviously, he's returning just recently from the game in Japan. Mikael Docker has been featuring on the left-hand side in a couple games pre-season forward. The Mariners could potentially be stationed on that side once again and could be coming up against defender Jason Geria. And that will be a really fascinating battle. Jason Geria coming off a couple really good appearances for the Socceroos. Mikael Docker, a star player this season for the Central Coast, especially with the departures of Josh Nisbet and Ronald Barcelous. Mariners are going to be looking to Mikael Docker to be one of their main attacking outlets this season. So keep an eye on that duel. For my score prediction, I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I think Victory are potentially favourites heading into this game, but I think a draw could be a fair result in the end. Next up, we have 3 huge matches on Saturday, and it gets underway with Auckland FC playing their first ever A-League game. Can't wait for it. They're taking on Brisbane Roar at home. Hopefully a sellout there at Auckland. This is our first look at Auckland FC, and really curious to see how exactly they line up. Obviously, they've got a really stacked squad. Hiroki Sakai, fantastic signing for the A-League, Japanese international. Jake Brimmer's in there, Dan Hall, Scott Galloway, and some fascinating New Zealand players who I'm sure will be keen to tear it up in the A-League this season. Taking on a Brisbane Roar side who they themselves have made some fascinating signings this season, potentially debuts for the likes of Rafael Strike, Waleed Shaw, for Kranitz at the back as well. A number of new players at Brisbane, and a lot of excitement in terms of how they will perform this season. Obviously a team Brisbane who have now missed out on finals a couple of years in a row, looking to return this season. Auckland FC though, I think there's just going to be so much hype and excitement around this club on their opening day of the season, and I'm backing them to get the win. I think it could be a tricky test for Brisbane Roar. It was going to be tricky for regardless of, you know, whoever was going to go over there to face Auckland for their first ever match. But I'm sure the atmosphere in Auckland is going to be fantastic. Again, we'll keep an eye on how exactly Auckland line up this season under new head coach Steve Corica, but they'll be eager to kick off with a win here against Brisbane, and I think they do it with the excitement of opening day there. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Auckland FC. Next up is Newcastle Jets facing Melbourne City. Jets, only a few key changes to their squad. Wellersol, the new Brazilian attacker, set to make his A-League debut potentially in this game. And Melbourne City, a bunch of new signings for them as well. Andreas Kuhn, Ferreira at the back as well. They've got Nathaniel Atkinson, who's returning for City also, so keep an eye on those guys this weekend. When we look at the matchups from last season, Melbourne City did get the win away to Newcastle Jets, and then later on the season a 0-0 draw between the two sides. And City overall, pretty decent record when playing away to Newcastle Jets. So this is a real test for Newcastle and this young Jets team led by head coach Robbie Stanton. How will they go this season? I think they will continue to improve, and it's going to be important for the Jets this season to really make sure they're strong in their home games and build McDonald Jones Stadium into a real real fortress for them this season if they do want to return to finals for the first time in many years. Melbourne City, though, I mean, you just look at the quality they have, the experience they have. I mean, question marks in regards to whether the likes of Caputo and Leckie will be involved in this game. It looks like those guys are still injured at the moment, but Melbourne City, regardless of those players missing, still such a strong squad overall, and I think we'll have enough to get over the line here in the end against Newcastle Jets. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Melbourne City. Following up is one of arguably the biggest matches in A-League history. Western Sydney Wanderers, Sydney FC, the Sydney Derby, and potential A-League debuts for both Juan Macarthur of Wanderers and Douglas Costa of Sydney FC. This is a mouth-watering clash. There is so much to talk about. We will be doing a live watch-along for this game as well this coming Saturday night, so make sure to join us in the live chat for that one. I'm sure it's set to be an exciting contest. Douglas Costa, obviously, we've already seen glimpses of him in the Asian Champions League too, and has put in some really decent performances, already grabbed a couple of assists, and has looked really, really bright on the ball as well. Juan Macarthur, we'll wait and see how much of a role he does play in this game. Potentially he might be set to come off the bench, we'll see, or whether he does start. Alan Stajic will make that call in the end, but it looks like he has been pretty well involved during their pre-season. Hopefully for this game and for the league overall, he does feature not only in this game but consistently throughout this season as well. Aside from those two star players, obviously Sky Blues have built a really strong squad this season. A-League debuts for Anas Wahim and Patrick Klamala, Leo Senna coming up as well. But for Western Sydney Wanderers, I mean, keeping on the likes of Bojdar Kraev, who was great at Wellington last year, is at Wanderers this season, and an A-League debut for Jong Tae-wook, who will have a huge task keeping that Sydney attack quiet. When we look at the record from last season, obviously the trend for the last few years has been the away team winning the Sydney Derby. Wanderers winning 1-0 away to Sydney, and then the Sky Blues grabbing that big 4-1 win against Wanderers at CommBank Stadium last season, and then Sydney also winning 2-1 at home. So Wanderers will be looking to that 4-1 defeat, and that was a real embarrassment, you get to say, for Wanderers, conceding 4 goals at home there, losing to Sydney FC by such a big margin. They will not want to let that happen again, and they'll have to really make sure they're switched on defensively to nullify this dangerous Sydney attack, who is already looking like they're gelling really well in their Asian Champions League 2 games. This game's set to be a sellout as well, and I think the home crowd, the Wanderers fans, they'll play a huge part in this game. They need to get behind their Wanderers team and cheer them on to victory here, because that could play a crucial role in this game. I think for Juan Macarthur, I don't think I'd be bothered if he did come off the bench. That could be a really sort of key move for Western Sydney Wanderers. Maybe if they are trailing in the game the second half, just the energy and excitement when Juan Macarthur, potentially comes onto the field off the bench, I think that would play a huge part in this game for Western Sydney Wanderers and could potentially turn the tide if Wanderers are trailing early on in this game. But look, opening round, it is so hard to split. Sydney FC maybe with a slight advantage considering they've played a couple competitive games recently in the Asian Champions League 2. For my prediction though, I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I think it will be a tight one in the end, and plenty of drama, potentially a red card. There is always excitement and intensity in the Sydney Derby, and this one is set to be a big one indeed. So make sure to join us on the live watch along for this one this coming Saturday. Wanderers Sydney. We'd love to hear your predictions as well. Let us know in the comments. Sunday afternoon fixtures. Wellington Phoenix back in action after their best season ever last year. Can they back it up this time around? They're taking on Western United, who obviously really struggled this year and haven't done too much in terms of recruitment, but Hiroshi Ibisuki's there, a big new striker for Western United. He's going to be key for them this season, and I would love to start this season here with the goal. When we look at the results between these two teams from last season, 2 wins for Wellington Phoenix and no goal scored for Western United as well. And obviously that was a feature of Wellington Phoenix's game last season. Not only were they obviously winning a lot of games, but they defensively were fantastic. They rarely conceded, especially at home, only losing 1 game at home during the regular season last season, and I think will be huge favourites to win here against Western United. So Wellington, obviously a bunch of new players featuring this weekend, the likes of potentially Ishige, Nagasawa, Paolo Retre, new signing there at Wellington Phoenix, new goalkeeper as well, Josh Oluwayemi as well, set to make his A-League debut, we expect also. And for Western United, I mean, it is Hiroshi Ibisuki, but they've got so many young players that they've promoted from their academy who could make their senior debuts for the A-League team this weekend as well. But I mean, you simply just compare the teams on paper, and Wellington Phoenix, despite the fact that they have lost a lot of key players, with Benold, Kraev, Zavada, Finn Sermon, a lot of key players departing over the off-season, they still have way too much quality here for Western United, and I think Wellington are huge favourites to win this game. I think if there's any game that's the easiest to predict for this coming weekend, it's probably this one, to be fair. Nothing against Western United. I think they might just take a bit of time to build into the season. So many young players in that squad, and Wellington Phoenix just way too much quality. I'm going to go 3-1 to Wellington Phoenix this Sunday, Arvo. And then wrapping it up on Sunday, Sunday afternoon is Perth Glory, Macarthur FC, the Bulls hosting Glory here. Plenty to talk about in this game. So Macarthur FC, obviously winners of the Australia Cup, huge achievement. And I think there's high hopes heading into this A-League season. They've built a really exciting squad. Maranyaka has looked great. Valerie Jaman is in good form. They've got a few other new signings in there. Obviously, Luke Bratton, who's recently received Socceroos call-up, Chris Economides, Dino Zlanagic, and Harrison Sawyer, who's picked up from South Melbourne as well. So a lot of excitement, I think, around Macarthur FC, and I hope the crowd numbers there at Campbelltown Stadium continue to build for this upcoming season. But Perth Glory, though, really curious to see how Perth Glory perform, not only in this game, but throughout the first few rounds of this season as well. New head coach, David Zrilich, a new system, a new tactics, new philosophy there at Perth Glory, and so many new signings to keep an eye on. They've been the busiest team in the transfer window, so very curious to see how exactly Perth Glory line up for their opening game. Keep an eye on the likes of Abdul Faisal, who looked really promising in their Australia Cup games. Nathaniel Blair scored 3 goals in those Australia Cup games early on in pre-season for Glory as well, so he might make an impact in this game. The results from last season, 2 meetings between these two sides, Perth Glory winning 3-2 at home, and then the Macarthur home match ending in a 2-2 draw. And we often do see dramatic high-scoring games when Macarthur FC are hosting. But the big thing here for Macarthur FC and head coach Milos Stojowski is, can they convert their Australia Cup form into A-League form? Obviously, the last time they won the Australia Cup a few years ago, they ended up going and picking up the wooden spoon. I don't think this will happen this time around. The squad is just too strong. They've got some decent depth as well this time around, and I think we'll be eager to start here with a win. It is tricky to predict though. Perth Glory, I mean, this side who have struggled for the last few years, there's a real chance they really do jump up and be they could be one of the dark horses this A-League season under head coach David Zrilich. But for me, Macarthur SC coming off their Australia Cup final win, I think they will have enough here at home. But I'm going for a high-scoring game. I think this one could be really open in the end. I'm going to go for the Bulls to win 3-2 over Perth Glory in this one. There's my opening round predictions for the A-League men's competition. Of course, we have got buys this season, so Adelaide United have to wait till round 2 to get the A-League men's season underway. And of course, we will be doing our round predictions videos every single week here on the Coast Watch Football YouTube channel. We've got plenty of videos here previewing the upcoming season, talking about who could potentially win the Golden Boot, how your team could line up, some rising stars to keep an eye on for this season. So make sure to check those videos out on the channel. And don't forget, join us here this Saturday night for the live watch along of Western Sydney Wanderers, Sydney FC, the biggest Sydney derby in history. Can't wait for it this weekend. Thanks so much for tuning into the video. Make sure to hit the like button on the way out. My name's Lockie. This is Coast Watch Football, and I'll see you in the next one.